Okay, everyone. This is a really appropriate speaker to have after our panel on the advancement of women in Israeli society. I'm Mark Hetfield. I'm president and CEO of HIAS, which is the American Jewish Community's refugee agency. And it's a great honor for me to introduce Minister Pnina Tamano-Shata. She is currently the Minister of Aliyah and Integration. She was elected to the 24th Knesset as a member of the Blue and White Party. She was born in Ethiopia in 1981, and she came to Israel. She made Aliyah at the age of 3 during Operation Moses. Minister Tamano-Shata has worked as a journalist, as a radio and television broadcaster. She, in fact, became the first Ethiopian female anchor on Israeli TV and a host of a special TV program in Amharic. In 2012, she became the first Ethiopian woman to be elected to the Knesset. And also following the protests by Ethiopian Jews in 2015, Minister Tamano-Shata led the national plan for the New Way, establishing the Palmore Committee in the Ministry of Justice, resulting in the Palmore Report to combat racism in Israel. In 2018, she returned to serve in the Israeli Knesset, running on the blue and white list. In May of 2020, Minister Tamano-Shata was appointed Minister of Aliyah and Integration, and she became the first minister in the Israeli government of Ethiopian descent. This past year, she was the recipient of the Menachem Begin Prize, which, when she received it, she said, "Begin's historical will to connect the components of Israeli society and the Jewish nation is also my mission as a public electorate, to work for the unity of the people, to continue to encourage immigration and good absorption, to fight racism for underprivileged and marginalized populations, and to bring them to the forefront of the decision makers' table." It is a great honor and pleasure to introduce Minister Pnina Tamano-Shata.
Good morning. Toda raba, toda raba. Distinguished guests, members of the Conference of Presidents, the Chair, Diane Loeb, CEO William Daroff, Vice Chair Malcolm Honline. Firstly, I would like to welcome and greet all of you here today, members of the delegation. Unfortunately, we wake up this morning and we see an escalation in Ukraine. This worries us. Israel hopes for a diplomatic solution. Israel supports Ukraine's complete territoriality and sovereignty. And with the direction of Prime Minister Bennett and also Minister of Foreign Affairs Lapid, Israel prepared to deliver immediately assistance humanitarian aid to Ukraine as long as it will be necessary. In my position as the Minister of Aliyah and Integration, I can assure you that we are ready to accept and to absorb thousands of Olim, but allow me not to expand more than this because the sensitivity. I'm happy for the opportunity to see you, all the representatives of different organizations that represent the leadership of North American Jewish community. I see in North American Jewry a strong community, and it is significant to see you here today in Jerusalem as a united body that represent Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Indeed, the relationship between Israel and the Jewish diaspora is important to us as the Israeli government, and we deal with quite a lot, especially my friend Nachman Shai that does a great job as the Minister of Diaspora Affairs and continues to strengthen the relationship. But for me, the unity within the communities and the Jewish diaspora is not less important in keeping the unity of Am Yisrael, no matter where we are. As a Minister of Aliyah and Integration, and actually before I became a minister or even a member of Knesset, I had the chance to travel a lot throughout the different Jewish communities in the United States, visit and get to know how involved you are, how much you are contribute to Israel and Jewish life, and especially for Aliyah. I know that you had the opportunity to meet Prime Minister Bennett and also the chairman of my party, Minister of Defense Benny Gantz, in the last week, and had the chance to discuss the Israeli challenges and especially the security matters. Alongside the security issues, the change government that was established last June, more than anything, ended a prolonged political crisis that included 4 national elections and brought the much-awaited political stability to Israeli society. The first mission that we needed to take on as a government was to pass the national budget. We were determined to ensure that the Israeli government supplies all of the society's needs by passing a budget after 2 years without one, especially as we were managing the crisis of pandemic. And this was the first things what we did, and it was a big success, especially because we are the most diverse Israeli government since Israel establishment. The diversity is not only manifested in the agenda, but also in the representation of the different part of Israeli society. I have the honor to be the first Ethiopian Jewish minister that sits next to Minister, thank you, that sits next to Minister Hamed Amar, a Druzen minister, that he sits next to Isawi Frej, one of the first Arab minister. And around the table, I am proud that we are 9 women. It is an all-time record that is important. And what is mean for me to sit around the cabinet table? It means that I have the duty and the responsibility not to forget where I come from and where I'm going. As someone who made Aliyah from Ethiopia at a very young age, when I was 3 years old in the secret operation Moses, it was very meaningful for me to choose the Ministry of Aliyah and Integration, to be the voice of the Olim and disadvantaged communities, and to lead a policy that helps that tens of thousands of new immigrants that decide to make Aliyah and to build their life here in Israel. And when I became a minister, almost 2 years ago, I saw my first mission to insist that even during the pandemic, during the limitation on flight, when the skies were closed all over the world, the Israel skies remains open to each and every Jewish person that want to make Aliyah. The state of Israel will always be open to Aliyah and always be the home of the Jewish people in the good time and also in the bad times. I'm very happy that we have a huge achievement in this last year. We received and welcomed almost 50,000 Olim Chadashim from all over the world. In the last 3 years, we welcomed more than 80,000 Jewish people to Israel, the size of a large Israeli city. And thank God, last year we saw a 30% increase of Olim from United States and 40% increase in the number of Olim from France. I am also working extensively to expedite the Aliyah of our brothers and sisters that waited for too long to come home from Ethiopia, and also Bnei Menashe from India. These days we are, as I said, we are all looking at what's happening with Ukraine and following the Jewish community in Ukraine closely, ready for all scenarios. In the last month, I directed my ministry to prepare for event that we will have to absorb thousands of Olim all at once. Together with other ministers and bodies that deal with Aliyah, we are ready to absorb thousands with housing, education, welfare, and more. We are ready for any emergency call. And we are pray for them. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. In the beginning of this week, I received tens of new Olim from Ukraine at Ben Gurion Airport, and my message to the Jewish community in Ukraine is clear. Israel will always be their home, and we will always be here for them no matter what. But it is not enough to accept Olim. The most challenging thing is ensure that the acclimating in the best way here in Israel. This is why I, together with the Minister of Finance, I spoke with him this morning, Avigdor Lieberman, who is himself immigrated from Moldova to Israel, increased the budget for my ministry. These days, Israel is dealing also with the complicated economic situation, just like many other countries, and especially with the cost of living. The government and the Minister of Finance are working on an economic program to find solution to help the Israeli people, and in my position to take care of the budget for Olim Chadashim, for employment, especially for employment, for education, and much more. The global economic challenges are not skipping over Israel, but there are also good things. We are recently hosted the new OECD Secretary General Matthias Korman. According to the OECD, Israel is one of the countries seeing economic growth with 6.3% increase in the GDP in 2021. As I mentioned, aside from the security issues that you discussed with the chairman of my party, Benjamin Gantz, as well as economic challenges, I must to say that we are not a boring coalition, and some would say this is understatement, especially this week, that my friend and I in blue and white demand to immediately pass the security and IDF laws. This is after a long time that the legislation was stuck in the Knesset because some members of the coalition had a different agenda and did not align with the coalition discipline. We insist that members of the coalition and members of the Knesset will follow the agreement signed when the government established. And we say loud and clear that until this law go throughout, we will keep the stability in the government, but we will not vote in the Knesset with the coalition We will not compromise over Israel's security. Another issue that I believe is important for Israel society, especially because of the fact that I say we are a diverse society, is the importance of to promote equality and struggle against discrimination, whether it is against blacks, Arabs, or any other minority groups. This is an issue that I led from the moment I entered as a young activist to the Knesset in 2013. I'm still young. And 5 years ago, I thank God I paved the way on this matter when I led a governmental policy to take important steps and actions and to publish the first governmental report that presented the reality of discrimination and racism. This promoted legislation and appointed professionals in the public sector that their role is to fight against discrimination and set an example for the private sector. Another issue that I promote in the government and in the past in the Knesset as the chair of the lobby to combat violence against women. In the legislation towards the legislation, the punishment for men who murder women. On this matter, there is no opposition and coalition. And in my position as a representative of Blue and White in the Ministerial Committee for Legislation, I push very hard to pass bills that deal with this important issue. This is our duty, especially, as I mentioned, in a government with the highest number of women ministers. Also, I believe that I have the responsibility as the first Ethiopian community member in the cabinet, a committee that deals with a lot of challenges to improve the situation of the Ethiopian Jewish community here in Israel. Today, the community size is over 150,000. We are a very young community, and unfortunately, as I said, the community faces a lot of challenges, socioeconomic, gaps in education, police brutality, delinquency, poverty, and more. To give a solution for this issue and other, I act for re-established of the Ministerial Committee for the Optimal Integration of Ethiopian Jews in Israel, which is one of the committees that Prime Minister himself chairs, and I stand by his side as the deputy chair. I am determined to pave the way for a better life for the young Ethiopian generation. This is why from the beginning I decided to be a politician after I was a lawyer and journalist, and I believe it is not only my community's mission. It is a first and foremost a national mission and a struggle for the face of Israel. My life experience as someone who broke glass ceilings throughout the way gives me the most important values and tools as a decision maker, and gives me the awareness of the reality of weakest part of Israeli society, and especially, as I said, the disadvantaged communities. This is why I believe that the more we promote equal opportunity, we promote a more cohesive society. After 73 years in which we built a state, a miracle, and a wonderful state, we need to work more on unity, tolerance, and a strong society. In this opportunity, I want to thank you as the leaders of North American Jewish communities throughout the history, and also these days, the American Jews take a significant role by helping and supporting the Olim from Ethiopia, but not only. You invest your time and your means for Israel in welfare, education, Aliyah, integration in the politica, and we do not take that for granted. And I want to remember that we are also here for you, and we always stand beside you. The destiny of the Jewish people all over the world, those living in Zion, those living in Ukraine, and those who living in diaspora, depend on each other. As he said, Kol Israel arevim ze laze. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, we only have
Thank
5
you.
minutes. So so we've collected questions in advance to be as efficient as we can. My colleague, Sivan Carmel, the leader of Highest Israel, and I will ask them. You've already answered many of them in your remarks. I do want to ask about the Jews who remain in Ethiopia, and if you can tell us a little bit about what is the current status of Operation Rock of Israel.
Thank you about the question. Good morning. Since the government establishment, I work very hard to pass a government decision, and I passed a government decision. It was hard, and sometimes it feels lonely, and I say that loudly to the government. It's not mean if I am an Ethiopian person, it's not mean that I'm the only one that to need to act for them. And I get the budget. I get 570 million to bring 3,000 brothers and sisters that wait too long, as I said in my speech. The situation in Ethiopia is not so good, as you know, with the fight with the Tigray district. And I follow up, and I'm always connect with the community there, and the Jewish agency together with us. We are give aid with the food and others, and we send a representative and workers to Ethiopia to start the Aliyah. But unfortunately, after we take the decision, some of one of our organization and some of people apply to Supreme Court, and now there is discussion around that, and I say in the media to the Supreme Court, there is a government that take a decision. You don't need to involved in this thing, in this matter, and I hope that everything will be okay, and we will help the people that are left behind.
To what extent are you getting the support that you need to promote Aliyah and absorption from the Knesset, and in particular from the opposition?
So I say that in the struggle against violence of women, there is no coalition and opposition. So I think that also in Aliyah, there is not a coalition or opposition, and it's significant to see a member of Knesset that made the Aliyah themselves. So they are. It's important for them to help me in my mission, Unfortunately, because the political crisis also in the Knesset, there is not a committee for Aliyah integration. And still, we are working together. And for me, my partners is the people that love Israel and Am Israel and love Aliyah. So I can say that it is very, איך אומרים נוח? Comfortable to be the Minister of Aliyah and Klita. They have never attacked me, even the Arabs, in a very unique way. So it's okay, we are work together.
And we do have a token of our appreciation for your coming with us today. And it's extremely appropriate because it's an inscription which are the very words that you ended on, which is all of Israel are responsible one for the other, from Jerusalem artist Sharon Binder.
תודה רבה, תודה. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. תודה.
We'll take a quick picture.
Yes.
Where do you want us, Avi? This way? If folks will hang out for 1 minute, I have an announcement. Once Avi gets us in the right place photo-wise, we need to head to the buses momentarily as soon as we're out of here. The bus is leaving at 9:50. We do have a packed schedule at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. At the beginning, will be focused on the Ukraine crisis. We'll note that the minister's comments here were the first by an Israeli government minister on the crisis, and we've made a lot of news. Minister, breaking alert on Jerusalem Post.
One other announcement. Regarding late checkout, a lot of you have asked about it. So the hotel is willing to give late checkout till 4 o'clock for 50%
So you enjoy
price of the room. Anybody who wants to check out after 4 o'clock will have to pay full amount of China's breakfast. Anybody who wants to please go to the hostess desk and let them know, and they will organize it.
So the bus will be leaving in 10 minutes. Please be sure to have your passport and please limit what you bring with you. But we'll see you in the lobby in 10 minutes. Anything else? I think that's it. And again, the late checkout, with that you just said, if you're interested in late checkout, please come to ST right up front. 50% off to check out by 4 o'clock. Thank you.